The life of an interpreter in music came as a very exciting idea at a young age, seduced by the guitar version of the Chaconne by Johann Sebastian Bach. The performance of this work became a beautiful idea and a passion that afterwards made me a musician. Time has passed since that crucial moment, and after a long career as an interpreter of both classical and contemporary music, I found myself in an artistic dead end. Deep in the middle of the professional contemporary musical scene, my performance became a service for an economical exchange, replaceable and lacking of mystery, a labor that could be easily done by any other musician, entity, or even a tool.
It's simple. Over-specialize and you breed in weakness. It's slow death.
In the middle of that artistic and existential crisis, I needed desperately to find a personal and unique way to perform music outside the classical format. I decided to revisit that first seduction I felt with music. By doing so, I started unveiling and bringing out imaginary elements that I could feel when performing or practicing that are simply impossible to express in music performance. Those elements emerging from the music started to take an importance and had to be placed in a parallel universe of creative freedom outside the musical performance. I became aware that through the interpretation, my mind and also my body were both creating information that I could take apart as a visual or physical output as a complement of understanding and also interpreting the music I was in contact. A natural consequence issued not only from the performance, but most importantly from the repetition, practice, research, and study involved. My perspective of the interpretation of a musical work instantly became wider and larger. Those new elements were now an extension and an evolution of my interpretation, what I call plastic extension of music. Plastic extension is a new form of music interpretation that goes beyond translation, synesthesia, or musical analysis. This form of creative criticism takes the instrumental interpretation of a work, the praxis, as a gleaning phase, a poetic process preceding the plasticity of an artwork, an intervention in music performance. The score, the instrumental practice, and the performance become an incompleteness of the interpretation. creating a diverse and heterogeneous collection of materials that take part in this new creative process inside the plastic extension. The music score generates instrumental practice, but could also directly affect the plastic extensions. The instrumental practice generates the performance and the material for plastic extensions. Performance generates instrumental practice and material for the plastic extensions. Plastic extensions occur and can still evolve into more plastic extensions of the same source, but then affect consequently the performance as well as the instrumental practice, creating a new cycle of liberty, creation, and adaptation with the score. All these elements issued from the process are then to be extended, completing this experience in space, concretizing the material issued from music through the hands and eyes of the artist-interpreter in a new model of plastic creation, of interpretation. Plastic extension allowed me to bring into play all my artistic supports and vital experience to be able to express in total liberty the complexity of the impressions and ideas generated by this hermeneutic cycle of creation, intervention, and interpretation. In this second part, I would like to explain how plastic extension happens, taking two different examples or possibilities: an installation and a plastic piece. Paz Digun ne vedeva sa cara uma vontade de foder is a plastic extension of Breviario de Espejismos by Elena Mendoza, a solo guitar piece that was inspired by Goya's Capricho Nadie se conoce. This plastic extension was conceived as a tableau vivant, recreated by the visitors or viewers. The public, while interacting with the installation, become the etching of Goya for a frontal or external perspective of the installation. The idea of this piece came when I was appealed by the Nive character down to the left. This character helped me understand that a natural and new perspective, the one of the voyeur, could exist and happen from the inside of a possible recreation of the etching in a live model of a tableau vivant. So I started working on the recreation of the different perspectives of the etching through the masks of the characters. This extended interpretation of the etching came as a natural and easy way to work, a mutual alloy of music and image, extending both elements in order to create a hybrid extension of both the music and the etching. The other two perspectives are recreated by the desires of the two main characters, the seducer and the seduced. The seducer is foreseeing the nudity of the woman through his mask, and the seduced looking through the intentions of the man. Being this last perspective, the one in coordination with the music in the installation, which is my guitar version of the piece, and the video happening through her mask. In 2017, I started working on Pièce pour guitare seule by French composer Elisabeth Angot. During the study of this piece, I realized that the whole piece had 66 position changes on the left hand from the beginning till the end. So, a plastic extension of this unique characteristic became instantly very appealing. At this time, I just moved from Portugal to Paris and had literally no space to create bigger works like the previous ones I did. Being also restrained on my budget, I had to think how to keep going my work in space and extend plastically these 66 hand gestures. A small, compact format and easy to develop came quite easy when I associated these hand gestures with the tradition of the mudras. So I then decided to create a handbook of 66 mudras that I could work each separately in a small format of paper with only 4 different graphites, representing the 4 fingers on the left hand of the guitar. That could also be displayed in space as a topographic visual map or even a tutorial guide, made by the traces of my left hand going through the piece from the beginning to the end. This piece has a second plastic extension in video format, a visual extension. The video is made by a series of videos of train rails in motion. Like a string, the piece starts with an ostinato on the first string of the guitar. The apparent life and movement of both elements is revealed when set in motion. This third and last part is to talk about the new research on plastic extension that will take place during the PhD. The research will be divided in 3 sections: hand and body gestures, the study of different materials, and the contact of sound with the visually and hearing impaired. Since last year, I'm working at the Humanities Lab of Lund University with the motion capture team to create a plastic extension of Brian Ferneyhough's solo guitar piece Kurse Schatten 2. Brian Ferneyhough's music has the characteristic of having rhythmical and technical complexities to keep the music and the performance always unstable, also meaning alive. These parameters allow the performer to create a plasticity in motion between the score and the musical performance, with less control than a classical score, therefore constantly irreproducible. The idea is to create with the lab an archive of movements extracted from the different perspectives of the hands, rhythms and physical gestures of my performance of Kurse Schatten 2, to then pass the gathered data into avatars that will serve as a choreographic score or reference for the dancers to perform the movements of the hands reconfigured into the ensemble of their bodies. In parallel, I'm working on the plastic extension of the 12 Studies for Guitar by Heitor Villalobos. The idea is to associate each one of the studies to a different and unique material, from plastic to visual, from performative to installation. The first plastic extension made some months ago here in Sweden was the visual extension of study number 5, and the output material was video. These 3 plastic extensions in the form of installations are a transcription or adaptation for the visually and hearing impaired of Tri Tientos by Antonio Cabezon, a Spanish visually impaired organist from the Renaissance. The project started in Portugal in 2017, but until now, due to budget reasons, the first installation for the visually impaired still remains a project. This first installation is the plastic extension of Tiento 1 by Antonio Cabezon. This plastic extension is a giant harp of 12 meters with 287 tuned strings rhythmically displayed in 12 wooden modules containing each one 5 measures of the piece, along with 14 parallel and smaller modules that work as ornaments of the passages displayed. The strings, rhythmically displayed inside the walkthrough, work as a white cane for the visually impaired, and while walking, the visitors will be playing, walking, interpreting the music of Antonio Cabezon, without the need of any musical formation, simply through the guide of the strings and the sound produced by the gesture of passing the fingers through the strings. Inside this project, and with the help of Swedish historian Jan-Erik Olsen, I want to create a new visual catalog of sounds represented in different outputs and associations with the help and intervention of the visually impaired. The idea is to make a series of sound tests with isolated notes, intervals, and instruments that the visually impaired will associate with shapes, textures, resiliency, form, weight, scent, taste, verbal association, or elasticity. This series of tests are to gather data to create the next two following plastic extensions with the results gathered to pass this new knowledge from the visually impaired to the hearing impaired, creating a direct link of unveiled knowledge between the two universes and their particular relationship with sound. Associated with the tests, and as a fulfillment of this new catalog of sounds, a series of K-expression workshops will be held to create a new tactile history of sound, unveiling its form through the hands of the visually impaired in a new dimension of the physical form of sound and music. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to visit my website to see the complete body of my work.